you're handsome and I have problems with my dad. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you are watching another book review here on Dead Good Book Reviews. Woohoo! I normally tend to focus on books that I have physically or I have physical review copies of, just because it's nice to have something to waft, and I tend to get the framing wrong if I'm editing in a cover after the fact. But I enjoyed this book greatly and I wanted to talk about it, and I think I'm going to have to do a lot more NetGalley reviews in 2021. So we are making an effort not to wave our hand too much. Behind the cover of today's book, you've read the title, it's Fable by Adrienne Young. Full disclosure, I'm filming this in December of 2020. Things are good here. How are things in the future? I actually wrote my notes for this review and read the book in November of 2020, so all of these opinions are just mine. I haven't heard anything from anyone else at the moment. There may be some information I need to update. If so, I will be putting it in the description below, but that is a future Judith problem. I'm going to keep this review spoiler-free, don't you fret. This is a new release. I'd be a bit of a wang if I tried to spoil it for you. As is hopefully obvious, I have a free digital review copy of this book from the publisher Titan Books. That doesn't affect my opinion at all. Nobody's paying me to talk about books. All of my thoughts are my own thoughts. Fable is the start to a new YA fantasy series. It may be a duology. We'll come on to that. It's releasing in the UK in January of next year. I think it might even be like this week when you're watching this. I think that is the plan. The US cover looks a bit like this. The UK cover, which I will have up for most of this review, looks like this. I know there's at least one more book due in this series. It's called Namesake. It's out in March in the US. I don't think we have a UK release date when I am talking about it now, but I will put it in the description if we have one. Suffice to say, if the pub dates are to be believed, you do not have too much of a wait for the next one. Adrienne Young has written YA before. She's written Sky in the Deep and The Girl the Sea Gave Back, both of which I have read, neither of which blew my mind, I'll confess. But I will say here right at the start of this review, before we've got into anything, Fable is much better. I enjoyed it greatly. So at the start of this book, our main character Fable is abandoned on an island populated by thieves and cutthroats. She's left there by her notorious trader father after the death of her mother in a shipwreck. Fable's scraping coins together while also trying to stay alive in order to get off the island because her father has promised her if she can get off, she will get her inheritance, a place on his crew. She enlists the help of a young trader called West and manages to get off the island on his ship. But can she trust West? Can she trust her father? Can she trust anyone? And how can you get through life without owing anyone anything? I think the strongest aspect of this book for me was Fable as a character. I love a YA heroine. I like a cheesy YA heroine as well. I really like that Fable had a skill. I really like this deep diving, dredging kind of idea. And yes, there's a little bit of someone has magical powers involved, but primarily she is just good at what she does. And it's also quite refreshing to have a skill that is not music, stabbing, or sneaking, which I feel like are the things that most YA heroines can do in some capacity. Oh, or archery. She doesn't do archery either. It's a different thing. I'd not seen it before. I also liked Fable's personality. I liked how it developed throughout the book. I like the idea of challenging preconceived notions. That's always something I like to see in YA, and I think Fable goes through the motions with that, not in a bad way. I think Fable goes through that process really well in quite a short space of time in the book. I really like the setting. The majority of this book takes place at sea. As you know, I love the sea. I was very annoyed to read this just after filming my books that involve the sea video, because it definitely would have been on that list. I really like the way that this book doesn't get bogged down in the details of ship life. Sometimes I like that in a book. In this case, I was like, I don't need to know how it works. I don't need to know what mizzen sails are. Let's just get on with it. And that was really nice, and I enjoyed it greatly. And I like how it was tied to trade as well, really interesting, and guilds and things. That's always cool. The world, you don't see the vast majority of it, I would say. We see a very small portion of this world, but the bits that we see are really detailed, and I get the feeling that we might build on that in later books, hopefully, or later book if it's a duology. I thought that the romance was actually very sweet. Don't be surprised when you see a romance in this book. I thought it was quite lovely for a YA romance. It builds nice and gently while still fitting in the space of a not very long book, and it felt very honest, which I definitely appreciated. I think a romance founded on at least a semblance of honesty and meeting in the middle. I thought that was really cool. I think I did myself a little bit of a disservice and didn't read the description of one of the characters who is involved in this romance particularly well, and I read them as much older than I think they actually were. And so I was a little bit struck by the romance, because in my head I was like, no, that's a very old man, don't do that. But it was fine, it was just me. So go in knowing there's going to be a romance and you should have a better time. It wasn't a bad time, it was just confusing to me at first. I thought that the kind of themes of the book were really interesting that you pulled out. So Fable lives with this idea of it is a bad thing to owe anything to anyone, for them to have any power over you, whether that be monetary debt, whether they know one of your secrets, and this idea of independence is so firmly pushed onto her. And it's a kind of a cliche, it's a little bit twee, but this idea of that's not a way to survive. We need other people, and sometimes you need things unconditionally, and sometimes you have to give unconditionally. And I just thought it was a nice theme for a book that could just have been, you know, a generic, you're handsome and I have problems with my dad. And in some ways the book still is that, but there is that underlying theme that I thought was interesting, and I hope it continues into the second book, because sometimes you get your character through that initial character development and then the second book it's just like, well, they don't have that problem anymore. And I'm hoping that we see a bit more of how firmly that's ingrained and picking apart that idea a little bit more. Oh, it's also got some found family elements, which I'm a sucker for. It's very nice. If you like found family, this might be one for you. It's not quite... Becky Chambers is my best example of found family, but it's not quite that level of niceness, but it is pretty nice. Also, I've mentioned it's in the ocean, but I want to mention it again. I really like the ocean. It's a good time. A slight content warning perhaps, this book does seem to have the idea within the world that scarring is in some way bad and marks you as kind of like of the devil. It's not of the devil, but a similar idea, and if that's something you struggle with, then maybe don't read this, or keep in mind that that idea is challenged at times. It's not pushed against enough, in my opinion. I could have used maybe just a touch more of, that's not an okay way to think about things that people can't change. But it also isn't like, this is a great way to think, how wonderful, let's all think that way outside of the book. My comparisons for this book are all of my seafaring books, which I have a whole video on, so go and watch that there. But if you are running out of time, maybe you need to go, I don't know, make dinner, whatever you're doing while you're watching this video. I recommend The Bone Shard Daughter if you're feeling brave, it's a good time, and also maybe for some cheesy YA romance, Daughter of the Pirate King, just a little bit of fun. I was surprised by how much I liked Fable, I really was. I thought I was going to be like, this was generic and kind of meh, 3 stars, all fine. I ended up giving it 4 stars, I think, just because I had a good time with it. It entertained me, and I can't really ask for more from a YA book of this ilk. I won't say that it entirely changed my worldview in a way that some other YA or fantasy has done in the past, but it's good fun, and I would recommend it if you enjoy YA and you can grab yourself a copy. Comment below with your favourite seafaring-based books if you haven't commented that on any other videos. I'm just always wanting more recommendations for books set at sea. And also, if you loved Adrienne Young's other books, let me know why, because I wasn't so wild about them. I would like to know. While you're down there commenting, you can also follow me on my social media, that's linked below. You can subscribe because it makes me feel loved and appreciated. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another book review. I don't know why that was funny to me. Let's start again. In the US in March of next year? No, this year for you. Future is hard. Suffice to say, if the pub dates are be to be believed,